If character assassination was the main theme of the previous episode, then I would go for creating random new lore as the main theme for this one, as the Doors come up with this brand new concept of singing to the mountains. Now, it's not brand new. We did see some of it back in season 1, but it comes full force here in season 2, episode 2, where Diza is singing to the mountains. And the reason why she has to sing to the mountains to open up some pathways is that after Mount Doom has exploded and caused a whole bunch of shifts and ripples underground, Castle Dune or Moria has had some cave-ins, and the shafts of light have been cut off that would flood Moria with light. Now, Moria, for some reason, has a whole bunch of farming down below that the dwarves rely on. Now, I don't know if that's actually part of the lore that the dwarves farm underground. I always presume that the dwarves had farms around their mountains, or that they always were trading their metals and golds and gems for food with the people from the outside. Thus, they're able to sustain their culture within. So I'm not quite sure that's necessarily true, but I guess it's an okay plot device. It's fine, but why are you creating this brand new thing full cloth? Like, okay, I didn't really catch it back in season 1, but why do we have this power here? Why are you adding this into Lord of the Rings? Yes, singing is important. It's a great aspect to all the cultures within Tolkien's lore. The dwarves' music is very different from the elven, elegant music to the hobbits' more humble, more down-to-earth songs, to the more proud songs sung by the courts in the lands of men. So why are we having this aspect injected into the show, if not just to give Diza a little bit more than just being the wife of Doran, who is now currently trying to negotiate peace between her husband and Doran the king, who have had a bit of falling out in the previous season, where Doran and Elrond teamed up together to go mine mithril that the king strictly forbid. Now, they did find the mithril, but the king sealed it up, and at the end of that season we did see the Balrog down below, but I always presume that it's just something as like a teaser that, oh, this is the beginning of the doom of Moria coming to life. But with that said, I just really want to know why you felt it was necessary to add this in here. Also, how did those shafts collapse so easily? I'm going to presume that the dwarves who've been mining for centuries know about shifts in the tectonic plates and would be presumably skilled enough to design their tunnels to withstand such cave-ins, or at least have some structure set up to prevent such things from happening. Now, if they had put in the show a couple lines that just said, oh, by the way, our support beams that were holding up these passages that were supposed to prevent this from happening all failed because it was just such a critical shift from the explosion of Mount Doom that's what caused all of this now. But they never mentioned that. It's just a simple shift of the plates, a simple rumble through the ground, a simple earthquake that caused this massive disaster that, well, now they're pretty much doomed if they can't tunnel through all those rocks to get the light back to their crops within a certain amount of time. And that's the thing for this episode, time. Time doesn't really exist in Rings of Power. We saw that blatantly so in Season 1, and they made it even worse here in Season 2, going from just the time from Galadriel, Elrond, and Gil-galad to Celebrimbor and Hildebrand and the hobbits and oh well, they're not hobbits, they're Harfoots and not Gandalf. It just, the time, it doesn't seem real. You don't have any idea what time has passed, if there's a great amount of time, or if we're supposed to presume this is all happening at the same time or within the same weeks. They do a very poor job, in my opinion, of explaining to the watcher when things are taking place, how long things are taking place over time. That it just gives you a sense of like, is this all in the same day? Why do these events seem like they're all happening at the same time? Because the reason why I'm harping on this so much is that during a king's council, it's mentioned that they haven't heard back from Celebrimbor for a good while now. None of their letters have been responded to. How many have you sent out? If they would have said, like, this is the 14th letter that we've sent out, we haven't heard back from our traders, we haven't seen anybody travel from here to Gondolin within any point in time. What is actually going on? I don't think the city's name is Gondolin. I'm going to put it right here. I'm forgetting the name of Celeborn City at the top of my head. My apologies there. But we don't really know how much time has passed. We just know that you've sent letters and nothing has returned. If you haven't heard back anything after the first or second letter, where you sent them information that Sauron is about, I would presume as the king, you'd be very concerned, very worried, and you'd immediately send out a platoon of soldiers to go figure out what is going on. Why haven't we heard any word back from the city where Celebrimbor is at? I'm just saying that it's very weird that you'd send several messages but haven't heard a single peep back from what's going on in that city. Instead, we're just having a king who seems to be like, oh, no, everything's fine. We don't have to worry about it too much. But it takes Galadriel to keep pressuring him to let her go to Celebrimbor to make sure everything's fine, which would be completely unnecessary if you just told Celebrimbor right out the bat, like, hey, Celebrimbor, Halbrand, yeah, he's Sauron, he's a bad guy, don't listen to him, don't trust him, don't do anything. The moment you see him, kick him out of your city or kill him, don't let him near you at all. Yeah, instead, she wanted to hide herself, and almost immediately after that, though, she would go and tell the king that, it's Sauron. So if you found that easy to tell the king right there and then that it's Sauron, why couldn't you just tell Halbrand? Why didn't you just tell Celebrimbor, like, hey, this dude, he's working for Sauron. At least tell him that. Be like, hey, he's working for Sauron. He's part of the enemy. Don't trust him at all. And then you could learn later on, figure out that, oh, he's actually Sauron. Yes, he'd still be devastated that she lied to him, but at least he'd be prepared for what's coming his way, because Halbrand has arrived at Celebrimbor's door, and he won't go away until he's received. So this is kind of all on you and Galadriel. The whole reason why she's having this concern of Celebrimbor showing up at Celebrimbor's home is that she had a vision where he tells her literally that he has a visitor, and he starts reciting the poem of the ring. So if you don't know what the poem of the ring is, it's pretty much the inscription that's on the one ring that states 3 rings to elven lords, 7 rings to the dwarven lords under hill, and 9 rings to men doomed to die. That's the vision that she gets. I don't really have an issue with the vision, just kind of predicting what's out there going to happen. So take it or leave it. I'm okay with that for the most part. But the thing that I don't understand is why she's still dreaming about her brother in that dream. Like, why are you so obsessed with your brother? Like, okay, I get it. Family. If my family died, I'd be devastated too. But you have a husband who's died. Like, could we get a scene of her mourning her husband's passing? Like, looking at his face, looking at his statue, showing that she still loved him? Like, did she love him at all? Is it an arranged marriage? I would really appreciate having some understanding of what's going on with Galadriel and her husband that was mentioned back in season 1, because she seems to be far more obsessed with her brother than her husband for some weird, creepy reason. Like, are we saying, like, elven incestuous, or what are we doing here? Like, why is he so unimportant to her? I would like to understand that personally, because the show is doing a very poor job of explaining to you as a viewer why she never thinks about her husband at all. Like, if he was abusive, that'd be one thing, but I'm pretty sure that from what I know about the Tolkien's lore, they had a pretty good marriage, so I don't think that's the case. It wasn't a fantastic marriage, because I do think I remember hearing a story where Galadriel and her daughter did leave her husband for a time, but I don't remember the circumstances. I don't know if he sent them away to protect them and he had to go fight on the front lines or something. It's been a while since I listened to any of the lore videos on that particular subject. But my point is, why do we not get to see anything going on with Galadriel and her husband? Like, there should be something there at the very least that would indicate that she still cares for her husband. But as far as we know, he's just cheap. And not only that, but the king requires her to get Elrond to go with her to see Celebrimbor. And the reason why is that Sauron has gotten into Galadriel's mind once, and according to the king, the moment that he gets into your mind, you are his forever, which I don't think is actually a part of Tolkien's lore, but in this universe that's the case. And if that's the case, then even if she had Elrond with her to go to Celebrimbor to warn him about Halbrand, that is Sauron, I still don't even think I would let her go, because if you can fall that easily under his sway as a servant, then every time that she gets near to Sauron, she just fall under him. Like, yes, Galadriel is one of the most powerful elves in Middle-earth. There's no contest about that. But Sauron is a Maiar, okay? That's an entire power level different than what an elven queen is. Now, true, towards the Third Age, her power and Sauron's power are about coming even because Sauron has lost so much power over the millenniums, but this is at the end of the first age and the first 1,000 years within to the second age. Sauron still has a lot of power, a lot of punching power within him. So at this point, Sauron should still be far above Galadriel in power. So manipulating her again, taking control of her mind again, shouldn't be all that difficult for the Dark Lord. And for Elrond's part, he's kind of just like done with them. He's just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go do this. Like, you're going to probably be playing right into his hand. He probably wants you there with Celebrimbor and then taking advantage of both you and him at the same time, and thus building up his power base even more because you fell under his sway once, and not only that, you gave him a kingship and you thanked him for going along with the plan. So why would Elrond see any point in wanting to go along with this farce? I don't really know either, but I understand where the man's coming from. And Elrond and her kind of split at this point because she wasn't necessarily all that truthful when she came and asked him for help. When she came to him, she said that the king has designated a mission for us to go see Celebrimbor, and you are requested to join us. And then she has to come clean like, well, actually, I can't go on this mission without you coming along, which I'm like, just be honest with the man. Like, you can't be honest at all. You're always being conniving. You're never really fully upfront with somebody. Like, this Galadriel, I don't see how she could be a commander and B, a queen, because she kind of doesn't have any of the personalities for it, in my opinion, except for the arrogance part, I guess. She has that down, but that's like the only part to her that she has. And for Elrond, he's just like, no, sorry. If you value our friendship at all, just go off and leave me be. I'll have nothing to do with it. And from there, he goes visit with Caradan. Caradan tells Elrond that the rings aren't necessarily evil, even if they might have a darker taint to them from Sauron, that these are still good rings that can be used for good. Just because a tool might be dark doesn't mean that it's evil. And I have some issues with that. If you know that there's an evil entity that's messed with the ring, I don't know if I would want to trust it, especially a ring that powerful. Trying to associate a dark, powerful ring with someone who's made some bad life decisions but made a beautiful piece of art, I don't think is comparable. Because that beautiful piece of art in itself is a beautiful, wondrous thing, but the person who made it, not so much. Whereas the ring itself, it's a tainted object. Like, it is a dark and twisted item. I mean, we don't know that it's dark and twisted. I mean, in Sauron's touching of it, it's made it into an evil item. From what we've been seeing, that's been wrapping around people's minds because the showrunners don't understand that the three rings are the good rings, that Sauron just had a very lightly touch to them, that he just had a slight influence on them. Just so much that when he puts on his one ring, he'd be able to control the three elven lords, but nothing really negative would be coming out of those three elven rings. But the showrunners don't understand that nuance there. Instead, what we get in the show and what we've been seeing so far is that these rings are kind of evil because Caradan, even in front of Elrond, is putting his hand into the water and controlling fish to come swim around his hand and showing how easy he is able to manipulate life all around him. In fact, at one point, he even makes a fish jump out of water, go into land, and start suffocating itself to death. We never see if this fish really gets put back into the water by Caradan. We just know that Caradan is able to control these animals and take away their free will, which these rings aren't supposed to do that. And Elrond, for his part, I totally agree with him. He totally has a right to be very concerned of what they are doing with these rings, and that this is too much power, that they have a darker touch, that this wasn't what was intended. But he does eventually listen to Caradan's advice, like, if you're so concerned about these rings, help guide those around you and make sure that they stay on the straight and narrow path and not fall into darkness. So he accepts Caradan's advice, he goes to the king, and he signs up for the mission. Now, the thing about that is, though, it's not quite what Galadriel wants, because when she's summoned back to King Gil-galad, and he tells her that, yes, you can go to Celebrimbor and see that everything's fine, but this isn't going to be your mission. Elrond is leading the mission. And then the king leaves. And we see a face of not of joy and jubilation and like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with this. We're going to go see Celebrimbor and making sure he's all right. She has like a dark and angry and why am I not getting my way? I should get my way. I should get my way. Why should you get your way? I mean, the fact that the king is letting you go on this mission is highly unadvisable. It's putting you right in the line of fire of Sauron, making you another valuable pawn for him to play with, at least according to what the king has told us. So you should just be thrilled and excited that you're able to go on this mission, even if Elrond is officially the one leading it. I don't really understand why they want to make Galadriel in such an ungrateful and bitchy character. That's the best way I can describe her. Like, she seems to be ungrateful everything around her. If it doesn't necessarily go exactly her way, she gets all pouty and frustrated. Like, okay, I can understand some disappointment, maybe lessening of a smile a little bit, just like, okay, well, I'm so glad that we're able to go, but instead we're getting like this almost resentful look towards Elrond, like, okay, maybe the dude should just back out right here and then be like, on second thought, King Gil-galad, I have too much that needs to be done with carried in the shipwright, so I'll be taking my leave. Like, she seems to be just so ungrateful. And you know what? Maybe that's why the showrunners are trying to make her as a perfect fit for Sauron, because her and Sauron kind of match in that aspect. Like, if it's not their way, it's the highway for everybody else around them. So maybe that explains why they're trying to create a three-way with Galadriel, her husband, and Sauron. At least that's my understanding of what the showrunners want to do with Sauron, Galadriel, and her husband, as far as I know. Now, speaking of Sauron, who has arrived at Celeborn City, Celeborn, for his part, has kept Halbrand outside the city as per Galadriel, not allowing him to come near him or anybody else. But then one day it starts to rain, and Celeborn, he's feeling bad for the Halbrand, so he goes out to him, telling him, like, you must leave the city, I can't keep you in here. Instead of just putting him at spear point and forcing him out, he's just saying, I can't put you up anymore, even though he wasn't for the longest time. And Celeborn starts to be played by Halbrand at this point, who is saying, like, oh, so I guess you haven't heard about the news about the rings, I best go then, if you don't want me here. And Celeborn, he just falls for the trap of Halbrand, be like, no, I haven't heard. What of the rings? You must tell me. And Halbrand's like, but you must have heard from King Gil-galad at least. Oh, I see. So you have not. So the poor inventor who has his stuff taken from him with no appreciation, has no idea what's going on. Well, I must go. I must leave. And at this point, Celebrimbor was just like, no, come in and tell me about the rings. What you know. I must find out more. Like, why? Like, you, for your part, you're waiting on some information from Linlordian. I said that name completely wrong. The city where the King Elf is. I will put it right here. My apologies. I completely forget its name. I'm horrible with the city names. And so, why won't you just wait? If you haven't heard anything yet, the best thing to do is just keep on waiting until you hear from another messenger. But instead, Celebrimbor brings Halbrand in, and they sit down and start having a conversation where Halbrand reveals to Celebrimbor that the rings worked and everything is good to go. And Celebrimbor, for his part, he starts to celebrate. He's going to bring out some wine from the First Age. It's going to be a grand old time to celebrate his success as a creator. And then Halbrand goes like, but I would really appreciate if you could make some rings for men. And at this, Celebrimbor scoffs at, like, men don't need rings. Also, they are easily corruptible. Like, that shouldn't necessarily be the reason why men don't need rings. Men don't need rings because they aren't exactly like elves. Elves, with their immortal lifespan, needed the rings to keep their elven realms alive, to keep the magic within the world, to sustain them without diminishing. Men, on the other hand, they don't really need that. As time goes on, yes, the more magical, mystical elements of man are diminishing and slowly fading away, but it's not stretching their souls out and making the world dull like it does for the elves. So rings of power for them aren't really as necessary. But Halbrand continues to pressure him like there's a darkness rising up, like, we must build these rings for the men. And Celebrimbor's like, well, if we do that for the men, then dwarves will come and be asking for rings. And Halbrand at this point is like, oh, well, the dwarves, they have their own issues going on. And you would think that Celebrimbor, like, what do you mean on that? He doesn't really dig much more into that. He just kind of lets it slide as Celebrimbor starts revealing more to him, like, I did not be fully truthful with you. There's more to me than meets the eye. I'm a messenger of sorts. Beyond the evil, there's greater power that sends out messengers. So something greater than evil. Couldn't you just say the Valar or the good guys? Like, what's greater than evil? Like, my presumption would be the good, but that's not really the way that he's making it sound. That it sounds like there's more like a greater evil that he's being sent forth from to come meet with Celebrimbor. At least that's what it kind of sounds like in my mind. Because if you were trying to convince someone that you were on the good side of things, wouldn't you say like the Valar or Manwë himself has sent me, and I will hear and wanted to present you with this information? And then he goes ahead and reveals himself as Avatar, the Lord of Gifts. Pretty much that's the title I think Celebrimbor lays on him. And then Avatar then says, with your help building these rings as a partner, you will be known as the Lord of the Rings. See, they were to say the name of the title of Lord of the Rings within the show. Clever, right? It's whatever. So that kind of wraps up Celebrimbor falling fully into the trap of Sauron, so thus proving Galadriel's vision right. It's alright. There was some subtle manipulation here that I liked, but I would prefer it if Halbrand had been able to talk his way to the guards, smooth talk to them, just be like, oh, well, if I can't see Lord Halbrand, then at least let me go and get some provisions for my journey, because I must now make my way back to my people who are stuck in the Southlands and help them deal with the invasion of the orcs. We don't see really a lot of clever manipulations of him playing on the elves. Like, he plays subtle manipulations on Celebrimbor, but that's really it. For the man who's supposed to be extremely mischievous and father of lies and is able to fool almost anybody, he doesn't really show us his skills in linguistics, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a very clever person when it comes to words, as you can probably tell from this episode so far, but at least I can appreciate when someone's being clever, and I don't really see the cleverness with Halbrand in this show, except for maybe that first little exchange that he had with Celebrimbor, just playing on the fact that he hasn't heard any news. If he had heard news, how would we have had this situation play out? How would Halbrand been able to weasel his way into Celebrimbor's inner circle? I don't think these show writers are skilled enough to write such a scenario, in my opinion. Now, that's pretty much where we leave this. The last thing that we hear from Celebrimbor in this episode is that he sent a letter off to the dwarves to invite Doran to come to his home, and they can thus discuss something that's going on there. Exactly what's going to go on? Well, we already know that they're going to request more mithril to make the rings for the men, and thus, by making rings for men, they'll then make the rings for the dwarves. That's pretty much where we're headed. And that's kind of wrapping up the episode there. We also have the whole scenario going on with the Harfoots within this episode, but I'm going to be honest with you, I am really tired of the Harfoots, okay? I don't see any point of having them in here. I don't see any point of continuing the storyline, of having the stranger wander around that's not Gandalf. Everyone knows it's Gandalf. The way he speaks, the way he acts, yes, this is Gandalf. The fact that he's just kind of like a simpleton wandering around, just trying to gradually claw back memories and adjust to this world, doesn't really fit in with my opinion of the Maiar that are coming down to Middle-earth. My understanding of the Maiar when they came to Middle-earth is that they were wise men, ready to go fight Sauron, fight evil, right at the get-go. The only thing that was capped on them was their power and their knowledge of Valinor. Yes, they knew that they were Maiar, and they knew that they had powers and abilities, but that was brought down to a more adjustable human level because they were supposed to be advisors, helpers, not rulers or conquerors. The concern was that the Valar didn't want to create a pseudo-Sauron by allowing their wizard to go off and wander to Middle-earth, which pretty much happened because everyone failed except for Gandalf. So, smart move there on the Valar's part. But what we're getting here is just pathetic. And to make the matter worse, we're getting a random dark mystic person. I call him a mystic person because we have no idea what this dark person is. Is he the Witch King of Angmar? Is he Saruman? Is he one of the Blue Wizards? Could he be Radagast the Brown at a dark point in his life period? Or is he just another lesser Maiar from Morgoth's army that was a lieutenant of Sauron waiting for his master to return. We don't know anything that's going on here. First off, I have to shoot down the idea that this is Saruman. Saruman didn't turn evil until later on in the story when he started really digging into the lore of the rings and ring lore and trying to create his own rings. Yes, he was always a little bit more politically minded, maybe a little bit more devious person, maybe a little bit more calculating, but that doesn't make someone evil. So right now the time frame doesn't work for him at all, but of course they don't care about the actual lore of the show or of the book, so I'm going to guess they just threw that out the window and this has to be Saruman maybe, but I'm really hoping that's not. The Witch King of Angmar, possibly it could be him, but I don't know. I feel like he would be something else. My understanding is that most of the kings that Saruman gave the rings to for men were kind of neutral, or they were hungry for power, or they were going after, but they weren't servants of Saruman at that time when he gave the rings to him. At least that's my understanding, or at least that's why I think it was the case. So it's possible, but again, I find it unlikely, especially for someone to have this much power that this dude has, is unlikely to me. Now, it's very possible that is the Witch King of Angmar, but I'm just putting on a low totem pole of that could be. But regardless of what he is, he's somehow able to summon female Eminem, and they're having a conversation about the not Gandalf, and that he's rising in power but still doesn't have his full wits about him, and they're trying to track him down and stop him from gaining his full potential. And that somewhat works out for him when they send off the Rune Riders to go find him. They get close to him, but thankfully the Harfoots are able to hide in some bushes, and Gandalf, he just turns sideways and hides behind a tree, and they're not found for the first time, which is weird. Like the Harfoots, I get, okay, fine, they have a long history of hiding and disguising their traces. I get that, but why did you just have Gandalf hide behind a tree? Like, you could have found a better hiding place for him, but instead he's just supposed to hide behind a tree, and the riders aren't going to notice him. Come on, guys, let's do a little bit better than that. From there, they decide to take a trek across the desert, trying to cut their trail in half, so that way they can avoid their pursuers that are tracking them down. And it works for them for a little bit until they get halfway through the desert, and all of a sudden, Not Gandalf collapses from having to lug around the Harfoots on make a sledge of some sort. Why he's lugging them around? I'm guessing because they're small little bodies and they want to conserve energy, and he was willing to do it for them. I guess that's the most reasonable expectation for why he would do it. But when he collapses, it just so happens to be right next to a well. Pretty convenient, right? Well, thankfully, the female Sam and female Frodo are able to drag him over to the well and able to get him a bucket of water. Now, here's the unfortunate thing, is that as they're starting to water the passed out Gandalf, or the passed out not Gandalf, the well that they got the bucket from all of a sudden starts to chime again when the rope starts to go down like an alarm bell. So you would think that they would notice, like, oh, there's a bell there. What's this rope pulled to? Oh, that doesn't look good. Yeah, maybe you can make the argument that they're just super dehydrated, they don't notice their surroundings, but you think that their safety and their concern about being pursued and being tracked down would also be there at the top of their minds. So you think they would just take a moment like, oh, let's be careful about that bell that's going to chime. But no, they take no precautions at all, and just reminiscent of what happened in the Mines of Moria with Pippin. The same thing happens here with the Harfoots, and yeah, the bell goes off, the riders show up, they're hunting for him, just as the not Gandalf is fully reawakened and comes back to life. One funny thing that they do mention here in this episode is that female Frodo tells female Sam that not Gandalf has stopped breathing. If you have stopped breathing, I don't think being splashed water in your face or water going down your throat is going to cause you to start breathing again. I'm sorry, at that point, you're probably long gone. Now, if they just said, like, his breathing is very shallow, it's very ragged, we have to hurry and help him out, okay, maybe I can buy what they're doing here. But if he stopped breathing wholeheartedly, I'm sorry, your dude's probably dead. But thankfully, he's not. He's able to get up, and he finds a stick next to him that looks like a shepherd's crook, and he's like, oh, it's not dissimilar to the staff I saw in my dream, so maybe this is what I need for my magic to work. And so he tries to use it when the riders come at them, and he creates a massive sandstorm, which I think sends the riders flying away, but also along with female Sam and female Frodo go flying. And that's pretty much the end of what we see those guys. I'm sorry if I made that last bit sound uninteresting as all heck, but I don't care about the Harfoot and not Gandalf story. It just drags the story down. It adds nothing to it. Just cut them out. Just have them leave, not Gandalf alone, or have them become imprisoned by the dark mystic person, because honestly I'm pretty much done with their story here at this point. But you guys let me know what you thought of this episode down below. Was this a masterpiece in your opinion? Do you think that the showrunners have done a fantastic job so far? Or do you agree with me that this is just another episode just demonstrating that the showrunners are still just writing a random soap opera show that has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, except for they have names of characters and they have some events that go on, but otherwise it has nothing truly associated with the actual Lord of the Rings lore. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention. Apparently, in this episode, Celebrimbor is able to discover how to make the disappearing writing. So, if you remember back in the Fellowship of the Ring, when the party reaches the lake outside of Moria, and they have to wait till midnight where they could see the moonlight hit the dwarven hidden door that all of a sudden lights up in the moonlight, that then says, "Speak, friend, and enter." Well, apparently that was made all out of mithril, because when you make elven magic with some mithril, you can make it disappear until the moonlight hits them and then makes it appear. So I guess that's fine, but my understanding was always that it was just a spell that was cast on the doors, not that you need mithril in place into the surroundings in order to make that spell work. I don't know. I didn't really think it was all that fun. It's just another member berry to bring you back into the show. But hey, that's what this show is. It's just member berries, time waster, and very little understand what Tolkien actually is. And I'm going to be honest, I am just a Tolkien fan. I am not a Tolkien scholar. I don't know an in-depth of the Lord of the Rings. I just know enough to be dangerous to myself and probably others, but at least I love Tolkien and I love this world, and I can't say the same for the showrunners. So hey, I'll leave that opinion up to you though. If you enjoyed it, let me know down below. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.